Hello.
Hey, Karina. So welcome to At the Root of It. Today I have my friend Karina, who is going to chat with me today about what's at the root of overthinking. Karina, do you want to give maybe a quick introduction to yourself? More just like give our audience an understanding of maybe like how you would be thinking about this, like what your background may be and how that kind of context will help.
Hi. I've been friends with Hanisha for many years now, and some background. I am a big overthinker. I think I also have some anxiety too, so that feeds into the overthinking a lot. Um, I work in the biotech industry, and so I have a very scientific background, which has been helpful in some ways. Where, yeah, I guess I have to look at a lot of data and I make decisions based on that data. But you can't apply that approach to everything in life, unfortunately. So,
I definitely
yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
So let's start with a softball. So when you're overthinking, where does that kind of show up the most for you? Is it in your work? It is in your relationships, or is it at home, specific part of home, shopping, picking a dessert?
Yes, to all of them. Okay, so I think at work, maybe it comes up more when I'm dealing with other people. Um, I think overthinking helps a lot, when I was in the lab more of having all of the unlimited backup plans for in case things do happen. And that made me really good at my job because we never lost operational continuity. Um, at home, I think it's easy for me to overthink with my little one. Am I doing the right thing? Parenthood is a crazy, crazy adventure. Um, and then shopping, I like having all of the information, but I'm starting to
Mm.
realize just going in person and just going with my gut in person is better than looking at things online.
Oh, interesting. So is it harder then for you to shop online and like you prefer that in-person experience?
Yeah, I prefer the in-person experience. When I'm shopping online, I get kind of it's difficult for me to make decisions and like everything looks good. How am I not going to know how it's going to feel in real life? Because it can look some way online. And then when it arrives, then I'm just like, well, maybe this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And I end up returning a lot of stuff versus if I'm in person and I see something, I'm like, oh, hey, I know exactly what I'm getting by looking at it and feeling it. But yeah.
I feel like it's really hard to shop for clothing online. Like, I don't know
Hmm.
how people do that between the fabrics and the sizing, and even like if it fits your specific body well, it's a nightmare. I absolutely hate shopping online.
Yeah, no, I'll like buy things in like multiple different sizes, and then I'm like, okay, I'll return some of it. And it's like, no, so often end up returning everything, and I'm just like, well, what did I learn from this? And then I do it again like a few months later, and just like, dang it.
What kind of helps you like break out of overthinking? So like whether it's coming up at home or if it's coming up at work, how do you kind of, I guess, rationalize your mind to realize that it's even overthinking? Or, was that something you developed over time? And how has that kind of come up with for you over time?
I think I've always been an overthinker as far as I can remember, but I'm getting better now at catching it. And things that I do to check myself when I feel like I'm overthinking is check the time. Is it past 9 p.m.? Did I sleep very much over the night before? So that might be why I'm overthinking, even if I don't realize it. It's like, what am I doing right now? Hey, it's 11 p.m. Why am I going down this rabbit hole? You're going down a rabbit hole. And then I will stop myself by doing like a crossword puzzle or something.
You bring up an interesting point. I've definitely ended up in a similar pattern where
Hmm.
I'm kind of like, oh, okay, I'll do some research on X, Y, or Z. And like an hour goes by and I haven't necessarily gone anywhere, but I didn't necessarily have an endpoint. It was just like a open-ended thing. So I find
Hmm.
myself like having to like if I start something like right now and be like, okay, you have until like either the 30 like minute mark after the hour or the top of the hour, depending on where I'm at. And it's like, all right, that's as much
Hmm.
time as you can give this and you have to move on after that.
Do you set a timer for yourself, like a physical timer, or are you good at like noticing the time?
I think I'm maybe a little bit more aware of the time than I realize because oftentimes I'm doing this on
Okay.
my phone, so I can already see it at the top right hand corner.
Ah,
But you're right. Like I think there's definitely been times where like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna take X amount of time, and then that plus another 20 minutes goes by, and it's like, okay, let's just close the laptop and walk away and do something else.
that's really good. I wish I had that. No, it's like I'll start getting into something, it'll be like hours later. I'm like, oh, crap. So I don't know why. Maybe it's time blindness, but I got myself this. Oh, you can't see it. It's a visual timer
Mm.
that I try to remind myself to use. Oh God, sorry about that. Uh, not been very good about it, but yeah, been trying to set timers for myself lately, but I'm not good about remembering to do that for things outside of work. Huh.
Yeah, I feel like I should probably use a physical timer because I tend to use my probably my Apple Watch the most for a quick timer here or there.
Hmm.
But I know there's like the like Pomodoro technique is super popular for like time boxing work, and I tend to find myself probably putting like scheduled events on my work calendar as a way to reinforce like finishing something. And
Hmm.
because I live out of my calendar during my workday, I automatically have to switch to the next thing.
Hmm.
But it doesn't work too well outside of work. So it's a work in progress. I think I definitely understand the challenges around overthinking. I think it probably was a little, no, it was considerably worse for me prior to kind of really forcing myself to like sit back and think about like why am I ruminating about certain things, and then most of that came from like processing it in therapy. So I still do it, but I definitely do it a little bit less than I used to. But I think like what I tend to notice too is I'll start getting really like almost when my like anxiety presents, it usually presents as some kind of like nausea in my stomach, or like I
Hmm.
just feel kind of like not necessarily like I want to throw up, but I just feel kind of that weird feeling in your stomach. And so if I've been scrolling or overthinking or researching something and too much time has passed and
Uh-oh.
I'm starting to get that feeling,
It's like,
all of a sudden I'm like, okay, it might be time to take a break or walk away. Um, but probably
hmm.
overthinking comes up the most for me when I'm trying to go to sleep. Like I have huge problems when it comes to overthinking and not being able to fall asleep because I just can't turn the volume down in my brain.
Do you find yourself overthinking about the same sort of things at night before you're going to bed? Or is it like things that you have to do the next day or
Honestly, it's a little bit of everything. And
Mhm.
I had a coach through work that I chatted with last week, and I mentioned the same challenge. And I told her, I was like, I would really love to be that person who can, they say write down the things that are on your mind before you go to sleep so that they're
Mhm.
out of your mind and that your mind feels like it can rest and go to sleep. It's like that sounds great, but something about the process of sitting down and going through that, I just resist. And I don't know why that is what it
Mhm.
is. But I would love to be the person who can just like jot those things down because oftentimes part of the reason I'm overthinking is because I'm holding too much in my brain and I
Mhm.
haven't developed a good enough system to write it down or track it. And I'm good at that from work, but it's not always like 100% together for like my
Mhm.
personal stuff. And then it obviously has to be put together for school. So it'd be like school and work, and then like my own stuff kind of falls apart. It's like, oh, did I fold the laundry? No. Am I living out of the dryer? Yeah, a little bit.
I totally get that. I think like so about a year ago I started using this app. It's called Tick Tick.
Yes, I am familiar with this. I was using their competitor for a while, Todoist.
Oh, okay. I haven't used that one
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
Okay.
How is it working out for you?
I think when I remember to use it, it goes really well. So uh I was doing really well with it, and then a few months ago I stopped using it as often. I realized I wasn't being very productive outside of work. And so I remember this past week about it, and um what happens for me, it's like right before bed. And I'm not really good about writing out things right before bed, but I find myself using it throughout the day where it's like, oh, I need to go do this. Okay, I'll just throw it on my calendar on here as a box I can check in the future. And then I also use it for whenever I get recommendations for movies or TV shows, and I try to remind myself, like, hey, you have like 10 minutes here of free time, and you like, I feel like I should be doing something. And I'm like, should I just like relax? Sometimes I'll do that. But sometimes I'll remember to open up the app and be like, hey, look, here's my list of like 5-minute things I can do. So I think that it's been helping at least. It helps when I remember to use it. And so this week I've been really good about using it. Last few weeks maybe not so well. Yeah.
You actually brought up an interesting point about like the idea of not only writing stuff down, but writing down how long it would take for you to do it.
Yeah.
Because I've often found the things that I am putting off are the things that maybe take 5 minutes or less. And it's like, why? Why am I putting it off? I got my car serviced last week
Hmm.
and I was procrastinating on doing that. And then I was like, okay, like I'm going to wake up early for like the iPhone pre order. Let me just go to the dealership and get the car taken care of. And I
Hmm.
found a slot for the, like, I booked it the day before and it took me 5 minutes. I booked the appointment and I got it done. Was it that big of a deal? Have I been putting it off for like probably 4 months? And the counter in the car used to say like reminder, service due. And then after you kind of get to the 5,000 mile mark, the car
Hmm.
starts counting up how many miles you've been driving the car past the service like. So I think I'd gotten
Oh,
to like 200 miles past the like 5K, and I was like, all right, like I'm tired of seeing this message every time I start the car. But
yeah.
silly stuff like that. But it's great that you're kind of utilizing how much time something takes, because at least for me, I'm noticing the things that I'm overthinking or procrastinating on the most tend to be the ones that are super quick. And for whatever reason, I'm not doing them.
I think it's because they aren't fun. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like,
you know
oh,
what? I
I'm
think
gonna
you might be right
call or like
there.
look at this website and try to figure it out, or like call to like get an appointment for something. And it's just like, I don't know. That doesn't sound like fun.
No, you know what? You got a point,
No.
because when it comes to the stuff in the last month that I did to get this podcast ready and kind of get things moving, it was very easy for me to do it because it's something fun and something I want to do.
Yeah, I guess that, yeah,
See, you
I guess so.
absolutely
Well,
have a
I do
point.
some things anyway. I feel like there are a lot of things where I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do that someday. On my like the random craft stuff I have that tell myself, hey, this will be a good like 30-minute thing, a project that I can work on in 30-minute increments. Hypothetically, yeah, I think it's fine. I bought, the kit. I want to do one of those miniature kits. Bought the kit, opened it, saw the pieces, put it back in the closet, and was like, oh, well, maybe I'll work on it one day when I have a free 30-minute window and I feel like it. And I haven't touched it since. But, ideally, I'm like, hey, that seems like a lot of fun. But I'm not sure what to say about that because it's like, it should be fun. I think once I start, it'll be fun.
Maybe there's a combination here. It's like, yes, the thing needs to be something fun, but maybe it's also something that you are like confident in doing and not is like not novel or brand new, because then it kind of feels like, there needs to be some level of success, because otherwise, and I find myself
That's true.
classic part of overthinking for me, before kind of addressing it through some work, was, hey, I tend to have a tendency of seeing things as black and white, and it's
Yeah.
all or nothing. And so, I have sometimes slotted in a workout in the middle of my workday, and maybe my meeting runs long, and instead of having 30 minutes to do the workout, I have only maybe 15 or maybe 20 minutes. And because it's not the 30 minutes I programmed for myself, I just don't do it. When the
Hmm.
reality of the situation is doing 15 or 20 minutes is still more than 0 minutes.
That's true.
But I overthink it. And I'm like, well, it's not what I wanted to do. So it's like, hell with it. I can't do any of it.
Yeah, I see that. Do you think that's also maybe like a little bit of like perfectionism coming into play there? Like
Oh,
it's got to
yeah.
be this or not at all. I
Yep.
cannot do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that definitely goes hand in hand with kind of overthinking things, is like, I'm learning to find a way to break out of that perfectionism. I mean, even in the context of school, it's like I'm trying to not be the like top like A student, but it's also really hard because I genuinely want to learn, and I'm excited about learning, and I want to
Hmm.
put in my best work so I can get an accurate representation of, am I learning well? And it's like, well, okay, well, at the end of the day, like, I don't maybe need to write the extra paragraph in the paper. Is it really going to make a big difference? But I definitely would say that for me, overthinking does go hand in hand with some level of perfectionism. But I mean, even
Hmm.
going back to like something as simple as like sleep. I mean, I've experienced insomnia at many points in my life, and I just did that CBTI insomnia sleep training a couple of months
Hmm.
ago. And it was amazing to understand how easy it is to overthink sleep in general, and how even even now I'm still kind of overthinking sleep, even going through the program. And they work a lot to try to break down any like preconceptions. They're the ones that again recommended to me to write down and journal before bed.
Hmm.
Still not in that habit, but I would love to be that person. I've at least tried to be intentional about the occasional thing here or there that I feel like I need to get done. I'll at least put it on the calendar, since apparently I can at least do things that are on the calendar.
Hey, whatever works.
It's true. It's true. Do you think yeah, and maybe this is a little like ambiguous, but do you think your overthinking voice sounds like anything?
No, it's hard for me to tell when I am overthinking because it sounds like my internal voice that I have
Okay.
normally. I think, no, yeah, I can't tell the difference in mine. Does yours sound different than what you normally hear in your head?
I feel like probably not, but I think that's because when I'm in that overthinking mindset, I think if anything, all the noise goes away. Which just sounds kind of weird, because you would think that if you're overthinking, your head must be full of noise. But when I'm
Okay,
actively in the process of overthinking, I'm almost hyper fixated on the things I'm overthinking about, that I don't even hear anything else. Uh,
okay.
in a weird kind of paradoxical way.
I think that makes sense. I think that like when I'm overthinking things, I feel very alert, very focused.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got energy. I guess I do feel energetic. Just like, oh, cool, I'm gonna be doing this. I don't know if that's similar.
Yeah. Maybe what are the last three things you can remember overthinking about?
Overthinking. Okay, just before this call, I was overthinking the background to choose for the video. Like, I was just like, oh, okay, like I like this one. Oh, but that wouldn't be very suit. Like, there was a record store one, and I was like, oh, that wouldn't be very suiting for like the call we're having. And then I started thinking about light angles and what would look more natural. And then I was also just like, oh, well, which one's going to, be too busy in the back? So I was overthinking that for a bit, for like 5 minutes. I started hopped on like 10 minutes early. So that was that. And then last three things, I guess before that. Oh, a big one was overthinking like this trip we are planning to take later. So my husband, my child, and I were thinking doing this trip to Vegas later in the year. And I was overthinking the flight situation before I knew which days I was going to get approved off from work. Um, and so I spent one of my lunch breaks just making this giant spreadsheet of all the different flight options for all these days that I may or may not get off across like all the airports in the area and like the different times, the cost, seat level. It was a very productive like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I showed it to my husband. He was just like, you don't even know which days you're getting off, so I don't know how helpful this is yet. But I'm like, well, then I'll know like which days are going to be the best ones to ask off, because we're going to go for the ones that are the ideal time. I had the rankings like, hey, time of day, it's a certain color, or like different rankings. So I could like sort everything. And he was just like, okay, well, so much of it is out of your control. You don't know what they're going to approve. And then he just booked the flights. Like, I'll just book them right away. And that like blew my mind. I was getting stressed out because he's just like, these look like good times. I'm just going to book them. And I was like, but we don't know if I'll get those days. And he's like, we'll deal with it then. And I think that was so stressful to me at the moment because I was like, with my spreadsheet, like I have all this data.
Yeah.
And then I got the days off, and they work with the flights that he got. And he's like, see, look, like it's like, should we look at the spreadsheet again to see if we want to change the flights? And he's like, no, I don't know if you want to. And then it just got to me to be like, I don't want to look at that spreadsheet anymore. I don't know why it seemed so important at the time. Um, Holy crap, I put a lot of work into that, and I was like hyper focused. But it's really beautiful. I can sort it by any metric that we want for a flight. But yeah, no, I think his approach of just like, you know what, we're gonna go. I'm just gonna book these flights, and we'll just deal with it then. And now I'm just like, oh, it's so much less stressful just knowing that we already have flights. And
That's so interesting. What do you think like how did I mean you kind of mentioned how your husband just went ahead and booked it. Like what were you kind of feeling in that moment when he's like, "Oh, okay, like we'll just pick this."
he's like, which, yeah, I think for me, because he was just like, well, which times do you think? And I was like, what if it's not the best deal? And what if I don't get the times? I was like, we can always cancel it. I think for me in the moment, I was just like, well, what if it's the wrong choice? But then once he booked it, it was kind of like, okay, well, I'm glad that at least we have something on the books. We can deal with it later. And I think for me, it was just like, in how just like easily, he just like, fine, I'll take like 10 minutes, I'll book them. I think for me, it made me realize, oh, yes, he operates as someone who doesn't have any anxiety ever. And
So what do you think you were worried about? Like what are the things that ran through your head when you're thinking about the various options for the flight that kind of led you to want to have the spreadsheet to organize your thoughts?
I was worried because I was checking the flight prices the week before, and they were like up so much from just like 1 week out because it's during the holidays.
Yeah.
I was sort of worried that like, okay, like what if it's, we can get a cheaper flight? What if it's like a day that's not even a day that I would be able to travel because of work? Um, we haven't even looked at the hotels yet. Like, what is the hotel situation going to be like in Vegas during this time of the year? And that affect like our decisions of when to come into town? Um, how annoying would it be? So, okay, I'm one of these people where a lot of my coworkers like, Karina, you have like 10,000 thoughts in your head at any given moment. So these are all the thoughts that came into my head instantaneously as soon as you booked it. But I also thought like, okay, well, what if like half of the flights, so like what if the return flights work, but then the other ones don't? Would we be able to like cancel one set of the flights because he bought them in round trip, like
Oh,
increments? And I
yeah.
don't know. He was just like, because he booked them so fast, we didn't have time to go and look at all the policies. And he was like, no, like they're booked. And I was just like, oh my god, like how do we know? And then like if we had to cancel half of them, and then they wouldn't let us, then we'd have to book like full round trips, like even closer to the date. That'd be so expensive. are if we are able to do that, like, could we, like, just book some with, like, a different airline? Like, why aren't we not, like, using that to our advantage? We live so close to so many airports. But these are all the thoughts that went through my head in that moment. It's like I booked them and I was like, are they cancelable because they were the cheapest, right? Like, I'm just like,
I, you know, I, I, I feel like as much as everyone kind of thinks that, those who overthink are, you know, maybe overextending themselves, which I mean, to be fair, sometimes we are. But I kind of think that sometimes overthinking is also our superpower in many ways. Like I feel that and maybe this is an occupational hazard as a PM, but I'm
Mhm,
constantly thinking about all the things that could go wrong and then risk mitigating those things. And I
mhm,
only recently came to the realization that maybe part of the reason I am very good at my job is because I come from a background of survival and trauma. Like I very much am used to doing that. And that kind of just because I happen to be good at it, I happen to find a job that paid me money to do that and do
yeah,
that a lot. So I think it was kind of a bit paradoxical when I realized that I ended up in a job that I basically have because of skills that I have from having a traumatic childhood. How bizarre is that?
yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think so prior to what I do now, I used to help manage, like, this lab. And it was very similar. Like, I was really good at it because I was always thinking of all the backup plans. Like, if this fails, then we will do this. If this fails, then we'll do this. If these chain of things fail, then we'll go this way. And so, like, things would just, run all the time. I was like really great at that job. I tried to take that approach and I thought, like, hey, when I had a baby, I'll go with a similar approach. Like, just have all these backup plans in your head. But there's so much more chaos when you're talking about some big life changing event like that. My brain broke. It just didn't work out so well. And then eventually I went to therapy and I realized, oh yeah, I was overthinking a lot for all the what ifs and like jumping to like worst case scenarios because and I've never really noticed it because it was always like beneficial to me, like for my
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, like, that's why I was doing so great in it. But then when I had a kid, it kind of drove me insane because I was thinking like all the things that could happen that were wrong or bad. Um, and that was not a very helpful way to think. And then that's when I realized I think this might not maybe I should talk to someone with these thoughts of yeah, and it just so happened like, oh no, I was probably conditioned to like have to plan all the time and be in survival mode. Yeah, no, it's funny. I just saw my parents this past weekend, and I think I get it from them. It's like generational overthinking.
Yeah, I mean we you have parents who, are immigrants themselves and had,
Yeah,
our parents are boomers, so they had their own like intergenerational trauma that they were dealing with, and we have some of that in us. And yeah, that stuff is still we're all conditioned to still think that way.
yeah. It's like, oh well, you're in survival mode because you had to be, and now I've learned it. And now that like I've gone to therapy, and I'm like, oh, like yeah, I've learned overthinking because of my whole life of just how I was raised and how my parents do it. And then I saw them, and I was like, hey, oh, we might come over for, like, instead of spending it with my in-laws, we might spend Thanksgiving with you guys. And then they were like, oh my God, what should we have for it? Was just like a million thoughts are going through their head down to like, what sort of meat do we like in the turkey? Should we get dry, like, dark meat or white meat? The preference is there. What kind, I was just like, I don't know, like, it's kind of like September. And,
Yeah.
this is like 5 minutes into me saying, like, hey, I think we're going to go to Thanksgiving. Like, it's like, no, well, what time are you guys going to come? Which days? And I was like, I don't know. Like, and I'm like, oh my God, this is where I get it from because before I'd always have to have all these answers. And so I was always used to just being, but
Yeah.
since I'm trying to unlearn that, like, overthinking and having like the perfect plan every given moment, it caught me off guard. And so I was just like, oh my God, this is so stressful all of a sudden. I don't know what time we're going to get there. I also have a toddler, so who knows what time we'll actually get there. But yeah, so it was just sort of like, oh yeah, this is where I got it from.
That I mean, it's interesting when you kind of have the mirror put in front of you and you start having words, and it's not like any of our parents maybe had access to the same resources and help that we do now. So a
Yeah.
lot of these like terms are new, and you're kind of, oh, okay, that's what codependency is. I see. Okay, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, I'm overthinking things because I'm in survival mode. Got it. But then at the same time, it's almost like then is reflected to you with your parents, and you're kind of sitting there going, oh, okay. How do I
Yeah.
not react now because I know better? But now it's like, oh, they're also doing it too.
I think for me at first, it's like, well, why don't I know? And then it was just like, I took a step back and I was like, well, because I didn't think about it so much yet. But they also see, like, the line of questioning that they had was like because they were really excited, and that's just the way that they
Yeah.
react to some of the excitement. Also, like love, where it's like, okay, like we want to make sure we got the turkey, and it's like, well, I don't, it's okay, we don't think about like the turkey. It's like, we just want to see you guys, But I think it was very interesting because then I can see like, oh yeah, like they've had to be on survival mode like in their lives at some point, just like with their childhoods or like their journeys to get to where they are now. But it's just like it was, I don't know. I think after they left, I was just sort of laughing at myself, like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna be on this podcast about overthinking, and now I realize like it's just like, yeah, like you said, looking in the mirror, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like why this comes so naturally to me.
No, I know exactly what you mean. And how do you think you know, by having that mirror put up to you,
Mhm.
or even other times maybe it's occurred to you, have you then reflected on, oh, I see how then my overthinking shows up for those who are around me? Because I think for me, I would definitely say that the overthinking is something I eventually had to start intentionally, like, unwinding, because it was a little contagious. It essentially would kind of bring in everybody around me into that chaos of overthinking. And at least for
Mhm.
my partner, it definitely wasn't constructive. And if anything, caused sometimes our anxieties to bounce off of each other. And then you've gone into an unfortunate spiral.
Oh, yeah, I can see the spiraling with someone else. I think for myself, I think when I start doing it around my husband, he's really good at, okay, it's frustrating in the moment. He's like, "Why don't we talk about this tomorrow?" And I'm just like, "No, we need to." And it's like, "I know, we need to figure out the answer now." But then I try to think of like, sometimes it's like when I deal with my parents, it's like they need to know all the answers at that moment. I'm like, oh, that's probably what it's coming off at, but he's being really patient and just being like, why don't we just stop this and talk about it tomorrow? I do notice, I think like I used to have to manage people. I was really good about not having like coaching the people who reported to me to not overthink. I was really good at,
Oh,
which is funny.
yes.
And it's like, oh yeah, I can give great advice. Like, hey, like, I know you're worried about all this stuff, but like, why don't we think of it under this light? Or like, why don't we just, do this and then deal with this then if it does
Yeah.
happen? So I was really good
Yeah.
about coaching other people. But then for myself, like overthinking a ton and just like, okay, game face, I can't tell you that I'm overthinking, kind of freaking out about this because I'm supposed to keep you, focused and calm, and also just like, yeah, prevent you from other people from overthinking. So I think it's interesting in that, like, I guess depending on who you're with, like a professional setting is gonna be very different than like your at home
Oh
setting.
yeah.
It's like, it's
Oh
like
yeah.
okay, like people know that I am an overthinker, but they also know that I've thought of like every approach, and I am good at like talking people down from overthinking. But then at home, my husband is someone who, I don't know, like he doesn't overthink at all, and it's sometimes frustrating to me because then I'm like, well, how did you not think about this? Oh my goodness, like how have you not planned this out? But to him, it's just like, I'll just take it as it comes. He comes from a very opposite approach. And now it's like knowing his family too. It's like very, very like different from my upbringing. So I'm like, oh, I can see this is why you're so much more laid back in some ways, and this is also why sometimes maybe we'll like not clash, but more just like we'll notice each other's like very different approaches to things. Yeah, especially when it comes to like say planning things. Yeah.
I mean, and you brought up an interesting word too, that your husband utilizes a lot of patience, and I feel that too, because I think when it was worse for me, it was probably, I mean, it still is probably, my partner is one of the most patient people I know. Is that's so important when you are friends or even have anybody that you have in your life that's an overthinker. Be
Yeah.
patient with them. They're trying.
They might not see that they're in an overthinking spiral. Like,
Yeah.
because it just seems normal. You're like, why wouldn't your brain think all these like 10,000 thoughts when you ask this one question? Um, but yeah, no, patience definitely.
Do you think there's anything you wish like people would know about like the internal experience of overthinking and how to kind of work with those who are maybe overthinkers?
So I think I don't know like the best way to talk to people. Like I just like people who are chronic overthinkers. Of what I've said to them. It's like, hey, like, have you ever thought to say like maybe just like no, or can you deal with it at a different time?
And then
I
how do
don't
those
know. Yeah.
things, are those things hard then for you to find practice yourself? Like what do you think the difference is for you between giving that advice and then also being the one to necessarily take your own advice?
I feel like when I am overthinking, I don't see that I am doing it
Yeah.
unless I remember to check the time and realize it's after nine
It's the
o'clock.
time. It's
You
the
know,
time's
like,
gone
oh,
by and you're like, "Oh, I've definitely spent too much time thinking about this."
why am I doing this right now? It's 11 p.m. You're probably tired. Okay, that's why you're stuck in this spiral. But that's the only way I found to like stop myself. Yeah. But yeah, and like you said, I think for me it also happens a little more at nighttime or
Do you
if the
find there's
hungover.
anything 'cause I think we've talked about this before too, about how I mentioned a therapist at one point kind of told me to utilize like Sudoku puzzles as a way of stopping my brain from thinking
Hmm.
and help it relax so that it can fall asleep, especially at nighttime. Ever since then, when I'm really overthinking, I try hard to slip away, try to do a puzzle. I even have a paper book so that I'm not looking at a screen. And I
Hmm.
think I remember giving you the one of our favorite games to play was Railroad Inc. and
Yeah.
all of the like puzzling, and it's fascinating because the way it works is incredibly simple. It's like your brain is forced to do a level of analytical thinking when they're doing these number or word puzzles that really forces it to be 100% focused on that task and actually shuts off all the other thoughts that may be running through your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking that was a fun game. I feel like they stopped supporting the app though.
Actually, I do think it's come back. So I've been playing it a little bit more recently. So if you want
Get back on
another
that.
rabbit hole to fall down, uh, that is
Get
an
back on
option.
that. Get back on that. Yeah. Yeah, no, lately I've been using crossword puzzles because I think that it is just the right level of engagement, but also boredom to get my mind to like tire out before bed. Yeah, I think it's helped a lot to prevent me from like doom scrolling, which I was doing for a while, and that was not good because that was like really not helping the overthinking or any anxiety. After I was doom scrolling for a bit, I was trying to be productive with my time, and I'm like, well, if it's hard for me to break this phone habit, then maybe I'll go on LinkedIn and find jobs for my friends who are looking for jobs. Then I would do that for a bit, and then you're like, okay, now I've done that. Okay, I guess I'll go to sleep now. I've tried reading. But I found that if there's a lot of titles I want to read that are fiction, but every time I pick up a fiction title, I like can't go to sleep because then I'm just like, I want to finish the whole book.
I know exactly
So it
that
doesn't work.
problem.
Yeah, the nonfiction is hard because it will put me to sleep, but then I'm never going forward. I just kind of forget what I read and then I end up going backwards. And so then it's just really frustrating. So yeah, the crossword puzzles, I feel like it's like I'm productive enough going forward, but also it's kind of like boring, but still fun. And then I'll just like lull myself off to sleep.
Yeah, there's actually been a couple of digital board games that I've been playing on, like on my iPad. Very
Hmm.
much requires you to focus on playing the game. Sometimes you're playing against a computer AI. Sometimes you can just play solo and do like a score challenge and continually try to beat your score.
Hmm.
And I found those have been like, I honestly have lost maybe an hour or two playing them. And I'm still not even
Oh,
entirely
man.
sure if that was a good thing or not. But I think you mentioned something earlier about how like you tend to find yourself like overthinking partly because like it's almost like being idle is hard or kind of don't know what to do with yourself if you're feeling idle. And I
Hmm.
definitely feel that. And I know that the most, especially when I'm sick or something and I legitimately need to rest body and mind. And all I want to do is like do things. It's almost as if I cannot tell my body to sit still. Because
Hmm.
even if I'm not sick, I've been off school right now, and I'm trying to find what rest even looks like to me, which will be another episode this season too.
Hmm.
And I find myself, I'll get up, we're watching TV, and we'll finish an episode. And I was like, well, I've been sitting for 30 minutes. I have to do something productive now. And I'll get up and just start cleaning. Like I'll clean the counter or vacuum. And my partner's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I have to do something. I can fit it in real quick in between episodes. It's like, but
Oh,
why do I need to do that?
yeah.
It's like I'm
Huh.
overthinking all the things. I'll see visually. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself like a tidy freak, but I find that when my space is clean, it feels like my mind is not cluttered because
Uh-huh.
almost the more clutter that's in my space, the more clutter feels in my mind. It's a interesting association. And so
Okay.
then I want to make sure my environment is clean so that my mind feels clean. And what it results in is maybe classic overthinking. I'm not sure, but like I'll walk around and I will see all the things that need to be cleaned. Like it's
Uh-huh.
almost like it's an episode of like a crime drama where they do the zoom in on like the dust or something. It's like I
Yeah.
that's what I see everywhere. And I saw an interesting reel on Instagram probably a year ago now where
Hmm.
it was a conversation between a couple and they had a idea of one of them was the same type as me, like the one who was overthinking cleaning and seeing all the things that needed to be done. And what they did is they wrote out post-it notes and put it everywhere. And their partner understood how much was on their mind and how much they were thinking about. And I think it also goes to a lot, like, especially for women, for a lot of the like mental hold that we may be having in terms of keeping a household tidy, keeping a household running, making sure there's groceries in the fridge and all the small little things that are constantly rattling through our brains.
Hmm.
And I actually just tried this exercise over the weekend with my partner, and I was like,
With all the
I,
post-it notes.
yeah, with their permission,
Oh
I
my
was like,
gosh.
hey, I kind of want to try this out. Would it be okay if I did? I didn't go crazy. I kind of stuck to the living room, kitchen area, and I just started writing out, like getting it out of my brain. Started writing it out and visually put the post-it notes everywhere. Something
Hmm.
simple as like this little squeeze bottle that had been sitting on the counter for I want to say a week, maybe 2 weeks. And I was like, put me away or fill me up and put me back in the fridge. Like something simple. Like and then other things that I was like, I don't think this belongs here. I wrote, does this have a home? And then I put the post-it note on it. And
Yeah.
lo and behold, I think over the course of like the next couple days, like he actually went through and started like doing the things and grabbing the post-it notes off. And I think it was an interesting exercise because I feel like he also came to understand how much I'm thinking about, not necessarily whether or not it's rational to be thinking about those things, but just that this is what my brain looks like.
Hmm. I think that's an interesting exercise because it's maybe I think like maybe that's visual stimuli that's preventing you from relaxing. And then maybe, yeah, I guess everyone has their different thresholds for what
Yeah.
they can stand before it just becomes too much and it actually like affects them in the back of their head.
Yeah, and to be fair, I have definitely adjusted, especially with the reality of working and being a student and having my own passions outside and also being in a relationship means I can't
Hmm.
necessarily have a clean house to the same caliber that maybe I did before school started.
Hmm.
But I think finding a middle ground, or especially right now, and I'm in between quarters, I think we can kind of bring things up to a certain degree so that it's kind of patched for a while and I don't have to hopefully think about it. Or, like, my favorite thing is also to make sure that we clean up the house before we go on a vacation, because there's nothing worse than me coming home to then seeing all those things and being like,
Yeah.
oh, like I'm not, no, I'm rested, but now I have to go do these things.
But there's all this stuff here to deal with. Yeah. No, I totally get that. You were mentioning that like after, so I guess like do you ever notice that you're when you're trying to rest or just relax, do you usually have something playing in the background like a podcast or music or something that do you feel
Mm,
like your mind is constantly engaged?
I think it might be. And I think this is where, like, I think, forget what year I noticed it, but, my partner and I share the same, like, Spotify family account, and we would share each other's end of the year wrap up. And the volume, the volume of music I am listening to was a multitudes bigger than his. And it was like,
Mhm.
how are you listening to so much music? And I was like, every time I'm not in a meeting, the
Yeah.
music turns on. Like, I can't sit in silence and like not have music to be like productive. But at the same time, I'm also the same person who needs some degree of total silence to sleep. Like, I
Mhm.
really need it to be quiet enough so that I have custom earplugs that I went and got, so that they're molded to my ears and I can actually shut the world off. Some of that definitely comes
Uh-huh.
from my hypervigilance. Like, I am constantly aware of all the sounds that are around me. So my overthinking presents in very interesting ways. Something simple as going to a restaurant is sometimes very complicated for me, because
Mhm.
depending on how loud the environment is, it could be hard for me because I'm trying to listen to the person I'm with, or the, if worse, even if there's a group that's at a restaurant and it's loud. I'm having one conversation maybe with the person across from me, but if we're at a long table, I could be hearing something three or four people down, and I am actively in both of those conversations at once somehow. And then I'm also taking in the ambient sounds in the restaurant. I'm hearing glasses clatter. I'm hearing the music if they have it playing in the background. And I don't know how to filter any of that. Like, I actually
Hmm.
went to go do like a hearing test because I was a little worried about like how sensitive I was to certain frequencies too,
Mhm.
and come to understand that the way your ear takes in sound, it actually processes through your amygdala before your brain recognizes what is, like, recognizes the sound and kind of associates it with something. So you
Mhm.
could have a theoretical effect where you're hearing something, you're kind of getting that emotional reaction to it, and it kind of bounces around in there and potentially amplifies. So that is what happens to me in loud environments like restaurants or crowded malls. I could be hearing everything around me because I'm just used to absorbing all that sound, and I haven't learned how to filter to like
Mhm.
a single voice that I may be supposed to be focusing on. So
Yeah.
that's probably one of the more interesting things. So for music, it's almost like my world is already kind of full of noise, that for me music helps me feel like I can, like, that is the single thing I'm listening to, partly because of maybe overthinking. there's also maybe the tendency to get stuck in my own brain thinking about things, but music, and especially music with lyrics, like I'm
Mhm.
often just singing along. And so like it kind of is a fun way to redirect that hypervigilance in like maybe a more like tactful way instead of kind of spiraling in it.
Okay. Do you feel like music's like keeping you in the moment?
I think so. And that being said, like I definitely have challenges with like certain types of music. I would say like it's hard for me to, if I was trying to study or if I was
Mhm.
trying to read something, I can't do it with music that has lyrics. So oftentimes for that, I'm listening to something instrumental or like
Mhm.
lo-fi music or something.
Do you think that this is something that you also did back when you were younger? Like a
I
student in like high
did.
school or junior high?
I did actually. So I only realized it maybe a couple months ago, and I was telling my therapist about actually classical music was something I utilized a lot as a child
Okay.
to kind of shut off some of the things that were happening in my house and like calm myself. Like I would actually listen to classical music as a way to essentially like center myself and kind of process what I was going through, like whether it was like really intense emotions. I would listen to classical music and it would ground me.
Okay. Dang, it's so interesting. Do you feel that way now when you listen to classical music?
I do actually, especially like certain tracks, especially the ones I would listen to a lot back then.
Mhm.
Oddly, whenever I listen to instrumental music now, it's usually like, as I mentioned, lo-fi or movie soundtracks, maybe like occasionally other different types of like essentially contemporary songs, but instrumental versions of them. I
Mhm.
actually don't listen to classical music at the moment. And I found
Mhm.
myself when I last tried to do it that it actually just took me back to my past.
Oh,
That was the only time I listened to it, so it would automatically associate me with certain memories. And so it's been challenging maybe to a certain degree to listen to some classical music because it's almost triggering where I'm actually falling back into those memories of what may have happened at that time. But yeah,
okay.
I have these strong associations with like specific songs. Like I would listen to like Pachelbel's like D major, like in order to like I think before like a stressful like school trip, I would be very anxious about it, and I would just listen to it, and it would just kind of like ground me, center me, relax me, and I would listen to it on repeat trying to fall asleep. And so if
Huh.
I hear that, I just remember what it felt like to be like back then, or even if it
Yeah.
was trying to make sense of whatever argument my parents were having as a child. You don't understand any of it. So I would just like listen to classical music and, like Vivaldi's Spring or something. I would just, that's how I would ground myself, or maybe even the better way to say it is like that's how I would escape. And so for better or worse, maybe that's why I don't listen
Yeah.
to classical music now, is because
Okay.
the associations are too strong still.
Okay. With like those emotional feelings. Um, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think for myself, so I'm an overthinker. I focus the best when I'm listening to podcasts and not
Mm,
music. I think unless the music is metal or something really heavy, but I
interesting.
don't know why. Yeah, it's really strange. Yeah, I don't. So it's like if I'm listening to a podcast, I can focus, be on stay on task, and then if it's music, I'll tend to get distracted, unless it's the music that I used to listen to back when I was in high school. So like metal, like it's like some people are like, how are you focusing? Like I don't know. I just like completely focus when I'm listening to this type of music. If I listen to classical music, that is like the most distracting music to me. I get like very like distracted. I'm like, oh my God, like what's happening here? This is so exciting. It's like, why do I think that? It's classical. Everyone, it's just like, but it's like there's so many instruments. It's so exciting. I can't focus at all. But it's weird though, like with podcasts, because I'm listening to there's this show that I listen to down in San Diego. It's just called The Show, and it's a radio show with four different people on there, and they talk about just topics all the time. And it's like a fun show and it's like engaging, but they're having conversations in the show, and it's the easiest thing for me to listen to like focus.
That is interesting.
Yeah,
So,
but
like,
I don't get it. It's
I
like I
mean,
don't know if it helps keep the noise down because I'm like, oh, it's giving me other things to focus on while I'm doing the thing at hand, and so then it balances out the overthinking, like the extra level of stimulus or like, like loud music. It's like, oh yeah, this is helping me focus because there is just so much being thrown at me that the like one thing that I need to do, I'll like do without getting
it's
distracted.
true. I think whether
Yeah,
it's that or for you or like what I described, like actually they have very interesting similarities when it comes to just kind of overloading to the point where you're forced to think about the one thing.
that is true, maybe. Like you, it's like I need complete silence when I'm trying to sleep. But yeah, for everything else, when it's focus, it's just like, well, I'm just gonna overload it, and this works better, and anything like less than that is just too distracting.
Yeah, like it in some ways it's very like paradoxical, but it maybe in a strange way it almost makes sense. So like, yeah, I'm curious, what do you think, eh, whether it's any given moment you're feeling like you're overthinking, besides maybe the general idea of kind of the anxiety, what do you think is actually like underneath that essentially driving factor to like continually think? I know we discussed like that pattern may come from like your family, but do you think like there's a thing that's for you motivating you to continually ask the next question and kind of go through the process of overthinking? Are you trying to look for a specific outcome or feeling?
I think the feeling I want is just to feel like, oh, I guess it depends. I think it's just like making sure that I feel like I'm making the right decision. I don't know if that
Mm,
ties into like perfectionism, where it's like, oh, like, what if this? What if this? Like, let me see. Okay, exhaust everything so that I feel confident that I'm making the right decision. And like, say, like raising a kid, which there's no right or wrong, but all I know is like I don't F things up, but or I think like, the example with like the flight ticket, like make sure we're making the best choice of what we, like well, what is the best choice? Like I don't know. Like who knows? And I think maybe also, well, yeah, the reason I have to avoid news or just doom scrolling is because then I start overthinking about all the ways that things can go wrong, and then that isn't very helpful at all. It's like I don't know what I'm trying to achieve with that. Just like, how can this go wrong? It's like more like survival mode. Like, how would we survive this? How would we survive this? So, so it's either like wanting to make the right decision and feeling good about that, or just making sure that we can plan for the worst.
yeah. It's interesting. I feel like at the root of overthinking for me is probably control. I feel that oftentimes, especially in my childhood, since all this is kind of programmed from that time, was a time where I was very much out of control in the sense that I didn't have any control as a child over the situations and circumstances I was living in. And so I was constantly seeking control. And I think that has manifested as an adult, overthinking things because I want to control the outcome. I want to control how it's going to play out. And that means extrapolating many steps ahead to achieve the outcome I want or I would like to control. So,
Hmm.
what do you think is at the root of overthinking for you?
I think, I guess, yeah, I don't know. Maybe control or just like stability.
Stability.
Yeah, I think. But then when I think of it, like my life is pretty stable. But I guess I value that so much. I
Yeah.
just don't want that to be interrupted. So maybe it's a bit of control also. It's like I want to guard this.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Karina. I really appreciate the time that you took to meet with me and kind of have an honest conversation about overthinking.
Hmm.
And yeah, for the audience listening, if you have any topics that you would love us to talk about in a follow up episode, leave them in the comments. But thank you so much, Karina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.